the last part of our session, we worked through the plan, we worked through the do, and by the way, on the do side, we tell everyone this all the time and no one ever comes, but you're welcome to come and watch us coach in Anaheim if you are curious of how our staff is doing that and how we kind of bounce off. I think it might be a little bit better representation of, how we're coaching our team, and those athletes are been playing for a while, so how they get coached is pretty specific. But now we'll talk a little bit more about the review. And so you saw a little bit of on the court, but Tama, why don't you elaborate? Do you have anything more to add about that?
Yeah, so I just touched upon it. Sometimes we're in that huddle, sometimes we're not. But that's just immediately after the drill ends, we say quick debrief. They gather together. Sometimes it's really funny when sometimes when they lose or they win, they just give out like a scream because it's really tough in our gym. And so we obviously want some space for them to celebrate that. But shortly after, one thing that went well and one thing that we could improve on. And then we'll meet at the board, and Karch usually will take us through, hey, far side, what's one thing you talked about that we did well? And so we're in our huddle, and the girls, it gives them an opportunity to, one, just use their voice. It's an opportunity for us to learn just some of the thoughts that they have on how the drill went. It's a space to kind of give props to each other. And then the other part of that is an opportunity to improve. And so it could be a technical thing. It could be, hey, we just need to dig the ball off the net. It could be really big. It could be small. But even with that, we try to be really specific and keep it along the lines of stuff that we're either talking about or working on. Okay, so that's another way that we debrief. And then just at the end of the day, in the afternoon, our staff will sit down.
You guys can sit down.
And Karch will have us just share how did the day go. And we'll give some thoughts on, big examples, really specific examples on how we thought maybe our position group did, maybe a thought on overall, how was the training, things we need to look forward to. Sometimes I'll remind them that I want to work in one rotation so we could get our passers really dialed in. Hey, on Thursday, let's blitz the bro. So it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of debriefing, but also planning. And that could, depending on how many people we have, that could take a while. It's a really important part of just summing up the day, checking in to just where we are at, and then right in the office, we'll start to plan the finer details right on the whiteboard. So we're ready and we're getting prepped for the next day.
Yeah, I think that's something that I think it's really nice if you have a good routine of a good debrief. It's the planning and the debrief, the planning for the next day, the debrief of the day you're in, they go together. Or if it's a tournament, like we debriefed the world championships, the next world championships we'll go to, we can look back on that. We've already planned some of those things. Oh, we want to make sure to arrive on this day a little earlier than we wanted, or load training, or whatever it was. But our debrief has led us already to the planning of the next thing. So it's very similar for us in training. And then it's very specific to feedback. And with feedback, we're going to also look at a ton of film, and that's individual. We have a good routine and a culture. When new athletes come in, everyone has a different culture and like a relationship with feedback and video and watching it themselves. So that's something that we have to teach. What are you looking for? What are we looking for? It's there as a tool for us, not necessarily an evaluation tool or something to be scared about. The interaction on video, I think there's such an important part where that's solo and individualized. And then there's such an important part, one, if you're interacting, like we use the example you have in your resources there of ways to engage on a tool like Volumetrics or Huddle or other things like that. Or like Thomas shared sending a clip of some kind of homework. Here's a clip. What are your thoughts on that clip? You can do that from YouTube. You can do that from a clip you took on your phone, just sending it to them via email or text or whatever platform, getting some feedback back. So there's engagement that can happen there as everyone's busy and running around. And then there's certainly a lot of benefit from obviously one-on-one, position one-on-one, or team video feedback from what did we see? Here are some things that our systems need to get a little bit better, sharpen in. If it's things that are personal to that player, our experience would be that that's just one-on-one. And like, even if Tama's working with a Libro, she's in a different office, so that can be a chance to check in with them as well. I think that part is just massive for us of what does that look like? And then the other thing I'll say, and I think I might steer with that, but I think it's a place where even in this training session, what is the success rate of that cue? Like we gave out pretty simple cues today because we didn't know these girls. Like, for example, I've gotten to work with Carly before, and she was crushing the stop and face and just her entries, because we got to work on that last winter when we worked together. So I think in that practice, if it continued on, and my job as a coach is like, all right, she's 10 out of 10, she's crushing this, or 9 out of 10 in first ball. We might need to make that tomorrow's practice, probably make that cue for her, or she's ready to maybe move on to something more difficult, because I'm not doing any justice with an athlete if we stay on the same focus when it's too easy for them. And so, Tama, in your experience, how have you balanced like when to move on?
Yeah, so I get the question a lot of, taking your passers. I work with the passers a lot. Taking them through a progression, and I get the question, when do you move on, Tama? Because at some point, they need to see reality often. So what I try to do is, for example, that tutoring session, that first drill that we did, it's a quick hit. It's a couple minutes. We're dialed in. You're going to get a couple good opportunities, couple good exchanges of feedback, and then we're going to go to another drill. But within the tutoring, okay, we're going to have a focus. If I feel like that player is executing that cue a little more than half the time, okay, then we get to reality a little more than half the time. We got to go. We got to move on. We got to add to it. And not saying we're going to change the whole thing, but we can add to that little progression. So a good example, oftentimes I get to work with some, let's say, college players that just graduated, and they just haven't had to move and cover that much space when they pass. So you're going to see their moves, their shuffle moves are really small. Okay, so that's one thing right there. And then you're going to see that they're not used to the speed. So then you're going to see a tiny shuffle and a late platform. I have to decide right there with them, which one we're going to attack first. Because it's really easy to try to attack both and get better at none. Okay, so I might say, they're pretty physical. They're getting to most of the balls, but if they would just get their platform out a little bit sooner, I think that could really improve their passing. So I'll share that with them. Okay, so when we get in that session, we could be working on this for about, let's say, a week. Hey, let's get our arms out early. Meanwhile, they're taking tiny shuffles, right? But we're working on that skill. Okay, when they start to execute that in tutoring, great. You might, in the first day, go to live and it just goes out the door. Do not be surprised. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Okay, so we're just kind of working through this progression, and we're going to add stress to it. Okay, so maybe a little more than half in the tutoring session. We go to live, and it's maybe 3 out of 10 times. Okay, the next day, okay, she's kind of getting it. Next day, a little bit more. I find a really common amount of time is like 2 weeks. If they're really dialed in, at least 2 weeks, sometimes more. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes it takes like 3 months. Okay, but if they're really dialed in, you give them some good feedback, good models to look at. They know exactly what it looks like, execute it. Then you can work with them and progress a little bit more than half the time. And then ultimately, they're going to have some days in there where they're just outperforming. Awesome. They're going to have some days where they're underperforming. That's okay. But the average has to be somewhere around there, because I mean, this is a hard goal for us, but we're trying to get 6 or 7 out of 10 really good passes, right? So you can kind of work off of that for your age groups. I think it may be a little bit lower, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. So I try to look for that and control some of that environment so that they're ready by the time we go live. It's a Wild West, and we like it because no one's going to serve us easy. No one is going to serve us easy.